Before we get into this video, make sure you hit like, share my videos, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Also, make sure that your notifications are on and they're set to all. Now, let's get into this. But first, quick commercial break. So, Rama, how was your new year going so far? Good, we hope. It's been tough, hasn't it? Lots of us have woken up and smelled the roses. And some of us smelled coffee instead. But all of us have realized how quickly time's rushing past. You're that much closer to retirement and that much closer to not earning. But in the meantime, you've got some catching up to do, huh? With crypto and the markets risky right now, and inflation running over 8%, where are you going to put your money to keep up and beat it? You might want to talk to an expert from Noble Gold and run through the options of keeping your money safe. No pressure, no hassle, and no call center. And this month, Noble Gold is gifting away a 1/10 ounce solid gold American Eagle coin with any qualifying plan that you start. So just speak to someone who knows what they're talking about for once. Now, how good would that feel? And all you got to do is call 877-646-5347, or you can visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That is noblegoldinvestments.com. Now, let's get to this video. Now, here's the little turd. The first one. The first liberal commentator who's using these clips for his little reference, okay? Now, understand, watch how his thinking is. Watch how he strings together his argument, okay? Here we go, y'all. Y'all ain't know y'all was getting a training class on how to destroy liberal narratives and win these arguments. Let's get it.
Yeah. I wonder why Ted Cruz was so effusive when Trump named a woman to the Supreme Court and wasn't at all concerned that he limited his decision based on certain criteria, and yet he's decidedly not happy about Biden naming a black woman. I wonder what the difference is. Yeah, I can't quite put my finger on it.
And I'm pretty sure you're insinuating that the whole motivation is racism, because that's seeing it through liberal logic. Through liberal glasses. When you look through those liberal lenses, you see everything through the lens of race. Now, the whole argument that we're making, Ted Cruz making, and many other conservatives, is the fact that you're not picking people based on their worth, their effort, their accomplishments, their qualification. You're solely picking them based on race, but you're using and emphasizing race so much to where it almost unrolls and just destroys all the progress we made, to where we're not looking at race and we're not saying, since you're being discriminated because you're black, like back in the day, where yes, folks were qualified, but folks would not allow them to have positions and things like that based solely on the fact that they were black. Now, they're trying to make it appear that black folks are still in that situation where they could come to the table completely qualified, and yet folks will say, I'm not picking you because you're black. Now, am I so naive to think that there aren't some folks running around the world this racist, and being black might influence them to not pick you for something? I'm not saying that, but look at all of the positions that black folks have acquired throughout the time based on how we are now. You got the first black president. You done had all of these black folks have these amazing positions. Now, I want you to notice the difference, because see, this guy's insinuating race. The Democrats focus on race, and they use race as a form of division, as a weapon, and also they use these black folks and others solely to pander and appeal towards black folks, not picking them because they really believe in what they think, they value their opinion. They're using these black folks, and then at the same time, if folks criticize that or highlight that, they can also have a 2-for accomplishment. It's kind of like, killing two birds with one stone. Therefore, if you say, well, why are you picking that person just because they're black, if we're trying to do away with highlighting the fact that you're black, you're white, you're this, you're that, why are you doing that? Oh, so you must be racist. You don't want to pick this person because they're a black woman. No. I'm just saying we should try not to focus on race because it's been such a divisive topic in our society. But you guys are emphasizing it constantly. Now, let's get to my other part of my argument to show these people are disingenuous or ignorant or whatever. Notice they only bring up race when it's their turn to pick someone. But yet when Trump picks Ben Carson to be in his cabinet, Trump didn't come out saying, I'm picking a black man, Ben Carson, to be in here. He didn't even do that with Omarosa, and she was a mess. He didn't say, I'm picking a black woman to be a part of this. The Surgeon General, he was black. All of these people who worked with Trump, worked around Trump, he never came in emphasizing black, black, black. That's a Democrat thing. They do it for that purpose alone. just because they're black. That's the emphasis of why we have a problem with this. They didn't sit back and celebrate Clarence Thomas being a black SCOTUS. Why is that? And all of a sudden, all those reporters back then, when Clarence Thomas got promoted, Joe Biden included, all of those Democrats, they didn't want that dude coming in solely because he was black. They didn't overlook his politics. They didn't overlook the fact that he was conservative. They didn't overlook none of that and say, let's lead in with the fact that he's a black man. Therefore, I don't care what his politics is, what he believes, what his personal beliefs are. Forget all that mess. He's black. Put him in there. In fact, they tried to railroad Clarence Thomas. Why did they do that? Why all of a sudden they didn't want to talk about the fact that he's black and we're celebrating bringing a black man in? Why didn't they do that? That's because it doesn't matter to them if you're black, white, male, female, none of that stuff. They're not about progress. They're about let us create the optic that we are diverse and open-minded and inclusive, and we're going to use these other different groups of people to divide the country by saying this person's black, this person's gay. And then if we lead in on that, people going to say, it sounds like y'all are really focused on some of the more superficial things more than anything. What? You hate gay people? What? You don't want this person voted in because they're black? No, I'm just saying, how about we work towards getting to a point where we're not looking at that? Now, this guy right here. Well, male. I mean, when they didn't have a problem when it was a female versus a male. Well, talking about a female, that right now does not hit the sore spot as much as black-white issues. That is why they use black-white issues more than any other thing. Of course, transgenderism is a type. Well, actually, it might have, but they use race more than anything else. Nobody gets upset when someone talks about a female or whatever. But when you bring up black and you start saying things like the reason you oppose this person simply because you're racist, now they know that is a very divisive topic. Let's continue hearing this pipsqueak argument. Here we go.
By the way, it wasn't only Trump who vowed to nominate a woman to the Supreme Court to exactly zero pushback from Republicans. Even as far back as Reagan in 1980 also pledged to nominate a woman. In other words, using restrictive criteria is absolutely nothing new. And in fact, it's long since been celebrated as a way to make the bench look more like the United States looks, which is to say, not all old white men. But it's only now that Biden moved to nominate a black woman that suddenly conservatives are having a collective meltdown.
That's right, because what he's saying is conservatives are all racist, right? And he's trying to use examples in the past of people saying, well, you know what, I'm going to nominate this woman or whatever. And it wasn't until now, because I'm sure throughout his little video and his argument, he's going to conclude somehow every argument or opposition towards Biden's upfront commitment to a black person is solely motivated by race. Now, this is where the left goes wrong. Well, actually, they don't go wrong. They either don't care or they know that a lot of people's motivation has nothing to do with race, but they will assign that to them because they know that's divisive and it creates emotions in people to not listen to the argument, but instead get all caught up in their feelings. Just like they just, assigned a motive to everybody on January 6th. They were all there because they were racist. They're white nationalists. They want to keep America white. They're scared of losing their position, their power, all of that stuff. They didn't ask none of those people. They assigned a motive to that. They don't even want to have a dialogue with them because that's irrelevant. We want to make sure we create the narrative that everything you oppose that we do is solely because you're racist.
In case the dog whistle wasn't already obvious enough.
There it is.
And of course, the excuse Republicans use to justify their position is that they're simply concerned that she won't be qualified. Which, first of all, she will, considering Biden's already acknowledged that he'd nominate someone who's already a judge and who's already confirmed. But second of all, if they were actually concerned about qualifications, then why didn't a single Republican push back on Amy Coney Barrett, who had never tried a case to verdict or argued an appeal in any court? She had all of 2 years' experience practicing law when she was confirmed to the Supreme Court. So maybe, if you're a Republican who supported Amy Coney Barrett's nomination, you think twice before denigrating a nominee that Biden hasn't even named yet, just because you can't stomach a black woman sitting on the court.
Now, that was a lot to unpack right there from that skinny little teeny bitty man. First things first, it's always a dog whistle, right? And it's funny how only dogs hear that whistle. I mean, when I heard the argument, I didn't think, oh, well, you know what? That's a dog whistle. I mean, it's for racism because he hates black women. That's what I'm getting from that. No, I didn't get that. In fact, I was very aware of what Senator Cruz and many others have been arguing about this because I've seen this done time and time again with the Democrats is they simply focus on race over everything else. They're okay with using black folks to help them in their progressive agenda, in their Marxist movement to divide our country. So it has nothing to do with a dog whistle. If anything, it's a dog whistle to a lot of impressionable Americans who can't see that they're using race as a weapon to divide and conquer and to stay in power. That's the dog whistle. That's what we're seeing. We're not seeing the fact that, oh man, Ted Cruz is a racist. No, we're seeing the fact that you guys are using racism and black folks and others as a method of divide and conquer. But then he goes on to say something to the nature of, you know what, Amy Barrett didn't have all this experience and stuff like that. Now, I sat through the hearings and I watched Amy Barrett, and that woman was extremely knowledgeable. She gave it to the Democrats, even though they tried to fight dirty and tried to undermine her and attack her religion and everything else. And she was giving them the business. That right there through observation let me know that she was qualified. Now, his whole thing about, the past and stuff with her, she only tried 2 cases or whatever. I'm going to have to check some receipts on the Democrats' record of picking qualified candidates that has been, I'm sorry to say it, but picked based on race. And then he goes on to conclude by saying, you know what? That the only reason we got a problem with this is because we just cannot stomach the fact that there's a black woman that's going to be picked. So then, why do all these conservatives love people like Clarence Thomas? Why do they love him? Why do black, white, Latinos, conservatives as a whole, love all conservatives, whether they be black, Latino, or whatever? Because they focus on the policies and not, of course, their appearance, not, of course, their race, their gender, their sexuality. If you have ideas and policies that support my values, then you're a friend of mine. Or even if you don't believe in what I believe in. But if you believe in the Constitution and you're not an activist, I don't care if you're black, purple, green, or whatever. My concern is not that they're going to pick just a black woman. They're going to pick a black woman, and they're also going to make sure that black woman is just like all the other black Democrats, black commentators, that they all elevate. Their whole rubric is before we make sure that you get in this spot, we want to know if you're going to be supporting our radical agenda. Because just because you black, because Clarence Thomas is black. He black, but we don't count him, okay? But just because you black ain't just your ticket to becoming nominated. It is, you must be black and you must also support our radical agenda. That is what we know. And we know that because y'all didn't even consider anything else up front because you already got a predisposition of what you're looking for. Regardless, we already know she's going to be progressive. She's going to support our agenda. We just need to find somebody who's black.
A black woman, by the way, who we all know is going to have sterling credentials, even despite the transparent Republican fear-mongering.
Look at their record.
I mean, listen, guys.
There's one right there that they picked.
We're talking about the potential for war in Europe.
Hey, guys.
I mean, let's really take a moment to understand the significance of what we're talking about. It's been over 70 years. And through those 70 years, as I mentioned yesterday, there has been peace and security. We are talking about the real possibility of war in Europe. And the allied relationship is such that we have agreed that the deterrence effect of these sanctions is still a meaningful one, especially because, remember also, we still sincerely hope that there is a diplomatic path out of this moment. And within the context then of the fact that that window is still although it is absolutely narrowing, but within the context of a diplomatic path still being open, the deterrence effect, we believe, has merit.
Wow. So now that gives me confidence that they're going to pick a qualified black woman. Just like that VP who's extremely unpopular. Just like that VP who every time she gets on TV, she embarrasses the whole family. Now, here this guy's talking about, she's going to be qualified. Well, their track record in picking qualified people is subpar at most. I mean, heck, they picked some of those folks that they got just in the Democrat Party. Screams volumes. Black, white, and otherwise. That whole crew of Democrats. I don't trust their judgment because these folks running around doing stuff like accusing people down there in Texas of whipping Haitians. Running around talking about, if anybody, walking around with clown hats on, walking around talking about Guam is going to tip over, walking around talking about the refrigerator is worth this and my ice cream is worth, and their cities are raggedy. They're always talking about these radical policies and agenda, these folks, I question their ability to make good picks based on supporting the Constitution, because their policies don't support the Constitution. Now, if all of us disagree with a whole bunch of stuff that the Constitution protects, is it far-fetched to think that you're not going to pick someone that is qualified and is going to hang on to the fundamental principles of the Constitution? Why would you do that? That goes against your whole interest. So if you can combine two things, put an activist on that bench and a minority, look at all the points I can score with that. Now, do you want to be counted as a bunch of points for the Democrat Party because you got picked just because, number one, you killed two birds with one stone, black, and I'm a woman, and of course, they're going to vet me and make sure I'm progressive and I'm not too conservative. They want someone who is going to be all over the spectrum in regards to, should little boys get in there and beat up on little girls? Huh? See, things like that. Can we have 9-month abortions, please? Yes, absolutely. They will get everything passed because they're not going to put someone in there that disagrees with that. Shouldn't we go ahead and pass legislation against free speech? Yes. Shouldn't we pass legislation to take people's guns? Yes. That's what we would get. So we wouldn't just get a black woman.
Got that? Take a breath and let it sink in.
Look at
Here
that
it is
one. We
again.
got one.
Quote,
Here, look what
we
they
have
picked.
agreed that the deterrence effect of these sanctions is still a meaningful one, especially because, remember also, we still sincerely hope that there is a diplomatic path out of this moment. And within the context, then, of the fact that the window is still open, although it is absolutely narrowing, but within the context of a diplomatic path still being open, the deterrence effect, we believe, has merit.
Yeah, that didn't sound too good. That wasn't a good look. That woman had the scatterbrain. She's all over the place. And yet they picked her. They picked her. The woman who ended up getting knocked out of the race immediately. The woman who lost didn't even score points in her own state. The woman whose track record is garbage, as we're about to find out. But they picked her. And that skinny man right there is talking about, they're going to pick somebody who's qualified. Well, based on that, I'm concerned. I am concerned. But I'm willing to listen to the hearings, whoever they pick, and see what's going on in their head. But see, and this is me, outside of this argument about black, white, or whatever. My problem is not the fact that she's just a black woman or all that stuff, okay? I mean, granted, me personally, I'd be upset if I felt that I was qualified and I only got chose because I was a black man. I'd be upset. However, my argument is whoever they pick is going to have one characteristic, and that is they will be progressive. You can best believe that. Democrats do not do things that will go against their own self-interest. So that person will be thoroughly vetted, and you will find, just like all these other cabinet nominees, if you sit and watch those hearings, every single one of them are radical. Every one of them.
It's time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
Every day.
Every day it is time for us to agree.
Y'all get that?
That there are things and tools that are available to us to slow this thing down.
The 500 million tests that have been ordered that are going to be sent to every American. Do we know
how qualified she is?
Shortly.
Should we have done that sooner?
We are doing it.
But should we have done it sooner?
We are doing it. We have 20,000 sites where people can go, and I urge people to, you can Google it. If you want to figure out how to get across town to some restaurant you heard is great, you usually do Google.
Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
That's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me.
A minor mistake, ultimately, but it was an awkward reminder that Senator Harris has only been Senator Harris since 2017.
Wow. So she only been a senator since then. They just throw her up there, nominated 7. Now he's talking about Amy Barrett. 2 cases. She was a senator for like 1 or 2 years, and then all of a sudden she was running for president, and then they stick her in there as vice president. Was that well thought out? Did they not stop and look at the fact that this woman was unpopular? Did they not look at all of her track record and her history? No, they didn't care nothing about that. No, she's a black woman. Stick her in there. And you want us to trust the fact that they're going to pick the most qualified one. Granted, if they could find the most qualified one, they will. But I know these Democrats. They will. That's optional. They will be like, you know what? If she's qualified, great. If she's not, so what? She's black and she's obedient and she's a woman. Throw her in there. The rest we can work with. Just like this.
O'Donnell asked if Harris would bring a socialist or progressive perspective to the Biden White House. That's when Harris erupted in awkward laughter.
No.
Her voice cracking, Harris then went on the defensive.
No, it is the perspective of a woman who grew up a black child in America.
After mentioning her career as a prosecutor and her mother's journey as an immigrant, Harris decided to mention her admiration for hip-hop.
who also, likes hip hop. Like, what do you want to know?
Panderac at my door. Y'all hear that mess? All of that garbage. See, that right there shows what they picked her for. Get up there, talk about your black, and all of those things that lady brought up about progressivism. She didn't want to answer that question. She diverted, pivoted to I'm black and American, blah, 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 because guess what? I'm okay with that progressive agenda. Do you think our borders are? If she was picked to really implement our laws, protect our country, don't you think the borders are would have shut down the border? Do you think they would have picked her if she just said, now listen, if you pick me, I'm going to be tough on that border. I'm going to be tough on crime. If you give me an assignment, I'm not going to overlook the law so that we can push forth our agenda and stay in power. They said, thank you, next. That's exactly what they would do with whoever they pick for the SCOTUS.
And just one more point. Here's the actual moment where Ted Cruz first voiced his opposition to a black female nominee.
Watch this.
Listen to what he says.
Biden, the fact that he's willing to make a promise at the outset that it must be a black woman, I gotta say that's offensive.
Oh,
right. You know, black women are what, 6% of the U.S. population? He's saying to 94% of Americans, I don't give a damn about you.
That it's offensive to nominate a black woman because black women make up 6% of the population, and so it's a slap in the face to the other 94% of Americans. But by that logic, that means that it's always going to be a white person, because if the goal is to appeal to the majority and white people are and remain the majority, then you wouldn't be able to nominate anyone who isn't non-white, which, quiet part out loud, is the point for Ted Cruz.
Now, as we get ready to transition to the next guy, y'all hear that guy, the way he presented that argument, how he just cut that video off right there and then came in and inserted his own motive to Ted Cruz's motive. He basically said, Ted Cruz said that he's offended because Biden nominated a black woman. Not offended that Biden is leading in on race first, then saying qualifications if we can't get them. As an afterthought. No, Ted Cruz is mad because she was a black woman. He's not even talking about how afterwards Ted Cruz went on to say that if I was a black woman, it would be offensive to me because you're not focused on my skill set, my qualifications. You're focused on me solely being a black woman. So now I always have to question, did you pick me for the right reasons or am I being used? That's what Ted Cruz is focused on. But that guy made it seem like Ted Cruz solely didn't want this to happen or has a problem with it because he don't like black women. Interesting. So now let's see what the whole clip said, okay? Because now he just ended that garbage with said, and that's the whole point. Meaning Ted Cruz is racist. We knew that was coming. Here we go.
Right. You know, black women are what, 6% of the U.S. population? He's saying to 94% of Americans, I don't give a damn about you. You are ineligible. And he's also saying it's actually an insult to black women. If he came and said, I'm going to put the best jurist on the court, and he looked at a number of people and he ended up nominating a black woman, he could credibly say, okay, I'm nominating the person who's most qualified.
That's totally different.
He's not even pretending to say that. He's saying, if you're a white guy, tough luck. If you're a white woman, tough luck. You don't qualify.
Now, that's drastically different than what the little skinny pencil neck dude just said. He made it seem like it stopped right there. I'm offended that it's a black woman just because she's a black woman. Okay, how about if you never even talked about race and then all of a sudden you say, here's my pick and it's a black woman. Do you think any of these conservatives would say, what? A black woman? Well, you know what? We don't want that to happen because we are offended because you picked a black woman. Do you think that would be the response if you never jumped out there and said, I'm picking a black woman? Oh, by the way, hopefully she's qualified. Do you think that the reaction would be the same if you just said, I'm picking a qualified person, and then all of a sudden it's a black woman? We'd all go, well, let's see what this black woman has to offer. But you said, I'm picking a black woman regardless whether of qualifications or not. And hopefully she'll have those. So yes, you're going to be questioned about that. And then he goes on to talk about the large, vast majority of white folks. It's a white system. Therefore, now, if that is the argument that this man is trying to make, black men make up even a smaller percentage of the population than black women. And yet somehow Clarence Thomas made it to become a Supreme Court justice and overcame all of those attacks by those Democrats who was trying to destroy that black man who fought through all that discrimination, who actually was living during a time where the discrimination was open, it was aggressive, racism was in your face. That man made it through all of that based on his merits, because he sure enough didn't get no help by those Democrats, including Joe Biden, who all of a sudden now wants to pick a black woman solely because she's black. Now, why weren't they excited about Clarence Thomas? He was black. Why isn't this guy talking about cream rising to the top? Because Clarence Thomas overcame all of that. And it's a smaller percentage of black men. But now he's trying to say, well, you know what? If you don't base this pick on her being black and you're talking about the percentage of black folks, then you'll never have a black woman if she's qualified. But when you say I'm picking you because I'm black, I got a concern about that. I'm concerned about your motive. So let's finish with this guy because we're going to have to do part 2 so I can dissect and destroy the next commentator that disagrees with this.
So look, at the end of the day, these Republicans will pepper you with every complaint under the sun, but their hypocrisy is as clear as day. They didn't mind criteria for Supreme Court nominees until this very specific criteria presented itself, and that speaks for itself. But then, you all know the saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
And I'm glad that skinny pipsqueak said that. Because see, back in the day, Joe Biden showed us who he was. I don't want my kids growing up in a racial jungle. Yeah, he showed us who he was when he was up there hand in hand with Robert Byrd. The whole Democrat Party showed us who they are when they celebrated Margaret Sanger. Mentor, I admired her. All of them. Robert Byrd was a mentor. They showed us who they are when Joe Biden was talking about locking up all those black guys, throwing away the key. Okay, they were not able to be rehabilitated. Yeah, see, they showed us who they were when they attacked Clarence Thomas. And he had legitimate reason to come out and say, this right here is a political lynching that took place. And guess who was leading that lynch mob? The same guy who is now trying to tell you that, hey, I'm picking a black woman. Why wasn't he excited about that black man back then? So now this guy's talking about when they show you who you are, then you believe them. Well, why aren't you believing Joe? He showed us who he was when it came down to Clarence Thomas. My question to the skinny man right there is, if you're going to sit back and say that, you know, the hypocrisy is outstanding, then please tell me, why were they trashing Clarence Thomas? Because if it was all about race and not your policies or your political ideology, if it wasn't about identity politics, you know, then they would have said, well, let's check out Clarence Thomas, you know, and let's pick him because he's black. But for some reason, his blackness didn't even matter. Didn't even matter. Because then they wanted to focus on policies. Then they was concerned about whether you was a conservative or a liberal, if you were progressive, or whether you were a constitutionalist versus a radical on the court. So his blackness didn't count. That, to me, appears to be hypocritical. Because now, only thing that counts, starting off with this pick, this future pick, is their blackness. So we see the games that Democrat commentators and they will play, how they think, how they present arguments, how they omit information, how they insert their own, opinion into, no, I won't even say opinion, how they insert their own belief or narrative into the hearts of others. They'll say, your motive is this versus let me ask you your motive. These are tricks that they play. And once you know the games that they play, you're able to block those games. See, because I am a master of blocking propaganda and gaslighting. That's right. I'm like a jiu-jitsu master of destroying nonsense, because that's what I'm here for. All right. I'm a nonsense slayer. And in part 2 of exposing this garbage right here, as we look through the lenses of liberals. Take care. God bless you. God bless America. Don't forget to hit that like button, share my videos, find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those good things. And please check out Extreme Teas, my sponsor. If you like their products, please click on the link below this video. Put Kevin in a promo code. You'll get a 20% discount. If you'd like to donate to Kevin's Corner, feel free. The links are below this video. If you want to be a part of my $2 a month club, also feel free to do that. All it entails is you simply dropping $2 a month into one of those links below the video. Or if you want, you can drop a nice big fat lump sum in there to offset the stuff that we know goes on with big tech. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Make sure that you are still subscribed. And finally, set your notification button to all, because YouTube is playing games, y'all. Now, God bless you. God bless America. See y'all next time in Kevin's Corner.